Communication Workers of America, Alliance for American Manufacturing, BioGreen Clean, and the iSafe team bring you this production. Ed Schultz, news and commentary. Interesting timing by the president yesterday that he goes to the Pentagon, flanked by all of his lieutenants in his administration, gives a speech on fighting ISIS. And of course, tonight is the big GOP debate in Las Vegas. And they, of course, have tried to position themselves as the party or the candidates that will be able to fight ISIS a hell of a lot better than the president's been doing and defeat any kind of effort that ISIS might have to destroy this country. And, of course, Obama's not doing enough, according to them. The president, a little preemptive strategic strike here. Here it is.
We are hitting ISIL harder than ever. Coalition aircraft, our fighters, bombers, and drones have been increasing the pace of airstrikes, nearly 9,000 as of today. Last month in November, we dropped more bombs on ISIL targets than any other month since this campaign started. We're also taking out ISIL leaders, commanders, and killers one by one. The point is, ISIL leaders cannot hide, and our next message to them is simple: you are next.
You know what that is? That is just debate material for whoever's asking the questions, because that sets up the moderators big time. Now they can turn to these Republican candidates and say, yesterday the president said this. Do you agree or disagree, or what are we doing right or wrong? And so I think the president pretty much cleared the beach on that. I don't think it's an irony. I think it was very well planned out, and I don't think it's a coincidence, so to speak. There's a couple things that are going to be interesting tonight. How much swagger is Donald Trump going to have with his best polling numbers? How does he use it? Who does Rubio go after? And how does Bush become relevant? So who's got the tough political hill to climb tonight in the Republican debate? Let's turn to Bob Shrum, Democratic strategist, professor at USC. Bob, good to have you with us.
Happy to be here, Ed.
You bet. Unpack it for us. What do you? How important is tonight? I mean, these debates are getting excellent ratings no matter what network they're on. CNN has had this clock down in the corner of for a couple days now. They've been running this clock about when the kickoff is to the big debate in Las Vegas tonight. How do you unpack it? Who's got the heavy lift tonight? And what does this latest national number do for Trump, if anything?
Well, ironically, I think Trump is in a bit of a tough position. He's got a really good national number, and suddenly he's 10 points behind in Iowa, according to the Des Moines Register poll, which is a poll I really trust. That's why he attacked Ted Cruz this weekend, attacked him, said he was anti-Iowa because he didn't support corn-based ethanol, which we all thought at the beginning was going to be a great environmental tool, but in fact creates some real environmental problems. That's not why Cruz is against it. He's against it because he's against subsidies for anybody except big oil. But so I think watching the byplay between Trump and Cruz is going to be very interesting in this debate.
Well, here's what sets it up. On Fox News Sunday, Trump said this about Cruz.
I don't think he's qualified to be president.
Why not?
Because I don't think he has the right temperament. I don't think he's got the right judgment.
What's wrong with this temperament?
Well, you look at the way he's dealt with the Senate, where he goes in there like frankly, like a little bit of a maniac. You're never going to get things done that way. You can't walk into the Senate and scream and call people liars and not be able to cajole and get along with people. He'll never get anything done, and that's the problem with Ted.
What about that, Bob?
Well, I think Trump talking about temperament is a little bit like the 1930s comedian Fatty Arbuckle talking about diet. I mean, this guy has a terrible temperament. I'm not sure that's the basis upon which he wants to debate. I mean, he wrote in one of his books that, revenge against people who he disagrees with or who do something to him makes him feel really good. That's probably not the best attitude to take into the presidency. But Trump, I think, sees, he's not used to being in second place. He's in second place in Iowa right now. He's attacked the Des Moines Register poll, which is absurd. It has an incredibly good track record. So I think you're going to see him really go after Cruz tonight. I think he thinks he has to.
What does Rubio do, Bob? What does he do?
Rubio, Rubio looked like Rubio was going to move, and he still could because he's the real alternative that the establishment would like to turn to. The difficulty is that the fall of Carson has boosted both Cruz and Trump. Rubio seems to have picked up very little of that support, and so he seems, stuck in Iowa. He's not in very good shape. Nationally, he seems stuck around 12 or 13 or 14, and he needs to move. And the way you move is not just in the national polls. They're not what count at this point. What counts most at this point is the polling in Iowa, the polling in New Hampshire, and the outcome of those two the caucus and the primary.
I often wonder what kind of ground game Trump has in Iowa. I mean, you got to get people out. You got to get them to go to a meeting for several hours to stand up and speak and support you. He gets the crowd. Is that crowd because they want to see The Apprentice star, or they want to see Donald Trump a billionaire? They want to be there if he says something outrageous? Or are they there because they're willing to go caucus for him? What do you think?
His problem in Iowa, in my view, is not lack of organization. If you look at these crowds all over the country, you read about them, and there have been a number of recent pieces. These are very fervent people. They're angry. They're alienated. They are completely frustrated with the change in the culture of the country, as well as with the change in the demography of the country. So I think they'll vote. The problem he's got in Iowa is that the evangelical base of the Republican Party, which is very dominant there, doesn't trust him. And Cruz has picked up the endorsement of those people. One of them is a guy named Bob Vanderplaat. And the second thing that's happened is that I think people in Iowa are beginning to say, do we think that we can trust him not just on these social issues, but as a conservative per se? So he's got to establish those bona fides in this debate, and he's going to try very hard.
I'm surprised that he hasn't shifted away from all of the terrorism. Of course, I think San Bernardino played a great, drove the ship quite a bit with terrorism, and the news cycle has driven us in terrorism with ISIS and everything else. But Trump ought to be able to mop the floor with these guys when it comes to business. I mean, I'm not a big Trump fan. I mean, I think he's okay, but I believe that his business experience far exceeds anything any of these other guys have ever done. And when he says he knows how to create jobs, I think people are out there saying, well, he has signed a hell of a lot of paychecks in his career.
Yeah, I think it's less what he's done, although I think that's part of it, than his personality. Okay. I don't find him funny anymore. I think that the description of him as fascist looking like a fascist, talking like a fascist, is arguably pretty accurate. But what attracts people to him is that he is charismatic. He seems strong. He seems like he's going to say it like it is and do what folks want. And he offers what I think is one of the most dangerous illusions in politics, the illusion of a magic solution. Well, he's going to get in there. He's going to do something huge. The Chinese are just going to give in. ISIS is just going to be dispensed with. He'll just annihilate them. I mean, I think all of that is what is at the heart of his appeal, and that's, by the way, why I think he keeps talking about terrorism. Yeah, because that personality goes with the idea of fighting terrorism.
CNN polls 60% of Republicans agree with him on his position on Muslims.
I know. That's a comment not just on him, but on the Republican Party.
Yeah. Bob Shrum, always great to visit. We'll do it again. Thanks, Bob.
Okay, thanks, Ed.
You bet. Democratic strategist, great friend, professor at USC, Bob Shrum.